Well, here we go, guys. Another Tuesday night live cast, and we got a good one for you. You know, all the years that I've worked with professional fishing and seen these guys, they're a special breed, and it takes a lot of work to get to the level they are. It's not just about how good you can or how high you can play tournaments. There's a lot of work that goes behind it and a lot of sacrifices that a lot of these guys had to make to get to that level. Well, our guest today, he did things a little bit differently and maybe even the better way. But instead of putting everything on the line to make it to that level, he made sure he got all his I's dotted, T's crossed, and did it the best way that he knew best. And now he can reap the rewards of what he's done. I have a tremendous amount of respect for this man, and he's our special guest. So we're going to talk about everything it takes to make it happen, because there's no one better at it than our guest today, Mr. Ed Loughran. All that and more tonight on Bass365. That's right. There's a ton of work that goes into being a professional fisherman. It's not just about how good you can fish. It's not just about the knowledge you have and how well you can place. There's a whole nother industry behind professional fishing, and it's a big time commitment no matter what. I often ask a lot of guys when we get out there on tour, what did you do before you became a professional fisherman? A lot of them had careers that they gave up once they became a pro, but a lot of them started right from the beginning and never stopped, and that's all they've ever done. Well, our guest tonight has got to be the only, probably the most educated out of any of the anglers out there, and I think the only one that actually has a law degree out there. So we're going to bring him in because he's done things a little bit differently, but maybe the best way out there, and he's got a whole lot of stories and a whole lot of knowledge to be able to tell us. We're talking about customizing your career, making it happen, and never say never, with our special guest tonight, Mr. Ed Loughran.
What's up, guys?
Hey, guys.
Ed's here with me. We're neighbors. We're friends. We've known each other for a long time. And I'll tell you, Mikey, Ed's story, we were talking coming back from Lake Fort, and I had to pull over off the side of the road because I got kind of emotional and couldn't drive. It was that impacting to me as a fisherman. Yeah. So we're going to bring him right in and let him talk about, about the deal and how he got to where he is. And if you leave something out, I'm going to jump in and interject it.
This is truly one of the best stories in professional fishing that I've ever heard, honestly. What you've gone through, what you've done, the steps you took to get to where you are. I believe you were fishing the Elite Tour as a rookie at 50 years old. Is that what I'm?
49, yes. That's
40.
Right. Last year.
No, yeah, that was last year. So this is your second year in the elite level. It's not like you just got there by chance. But you had a lot of work to get to that level as well, like everybody else. But the route you took, the path you took, is inspiring. It absolutely is inspiring. And I know you got a lot of other things to talk about other than that too, because you are like the master at customizing your own baits to make it work as well too. So we're talking customizing today. Everything from careers to baits. I think that's pretty darn cool.
Well, I think that, like you said, customizing careers, baits, everything, everybody can put their own twist on their own life and their own lures. And everybody has to find their own way and figure out what the best way is for them. And if you want to make it to the Bassmaster Elite Series, there's different paths you can take. And I've seen them all. My story is my story, but everybody can make it their own way. I started off like so many. You read stories in Bassmaster or on the website about people who started off when they were 12, 13 years old, fishing little tournaments out of John boats. Their parents taking them and letting them go at a lake for the day, and then getting into tournament fishing. And that really is a similar path that I had, except no one in my family fished. I was born in Washington, D.C., and I grew up inside the Beltway. So no one in my family fished. No one knew anything about it, but I got hooked on it, got a job in a tackle store when I was young, and just started fishing tournaments, doing pretty well all through high school. Went to a college in Northern Virginia around the Potomac River so that I could continue guiding, because by that point, I was doing maybe 100 trips a year on the Potomac and other bodies in the mid-Atlantic states. And I started doing really well. And I started getting a name for myself in tournament fishing. And there were a couple other young anglers, but back in the late 80s, there were not the quality of anglers that you see now in the teenage years with high school fishing and now college fishing. So I kind of stuck out, and I was competing against full-grown men, and I was holding my own. And so I kept pursuing that and ended up quitting college in 1992 after I had done real well in the BFL All-American, got my captain's license, and was guiding and fishing bigger and bigger tournaments. And ultimately, I ended up kind of just pushing all my chips into the middle of the table for the Bassmaster Invitationals in 1994. And there were 4 of them at that time. And I did really well in 3 of them. Now, they were on bodies of water that I was kind of familiar with, but one of them that got me was Lake Lanier. And that torpedoed my chances of making what was the BP Top 100, but basically the elites. And I missed it by a few spots. I watched some of my friends move on and do that. And I really had the wind let out of my sails.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, I kept guiding, but I was kind of fishing fewer and fewer tournaments. And like I was telling Ricky, I mean, life kind of just happened in the mid-20s. And I watched a dream that was right at my fingertips. I mean, I was right there, and everybody was looking at me. And I watched it just slip away. And I think a lot of people have that happen, but it was never lost.
Right.
And, you know, when you have something like that happen, you take stock of where things are. And I figured I'd try to skin the cat a little differently. And so I went a different route, went back to college, finished that, and then went on and ended up working at a big Wall Street trading firm for several years. Got a job through a friend through fishing. And then actually a friend from high school and you know, a client. So then I ended up going to law school and becoming an attorney. And like I said, that dream never died. And I now have been able to I started to fish the opens again, missed making the elites by 1 or 2 spots. And I just didn't know if I was ever going to make it. I just would always have something small happen. And these are little things. When you're performing at a high level, very small things make an impact. And I finally ended up making it.
That's
and it really, it was a dream come true. And now, you know, it's a full-time dream for me, even though I'm just, I don't want to say a part-time player, but I still do have my day job. So,
and that's not a part-time job. You're a lawyer.
Yeah, but fortunately, the court systems and my bosses, we're able to set things out months in advance, so I can really manage my schedule. But another tip for people to be able to have a lot of freedom in their job is do a job that other people don't want to do. And so there are that's job security as far as I'm concerned.
I'm sure there's a whole bunch of puns and jokes when we're talking about a lawyer and fishing, and I'm sure, and we're not going to go there. I'm sure you've heard them all. You probably got 20 more for us out there or whatever. But I think it's pretty fascinating that you know, like you said, you were there, you were right there, you were so close, and whatever happened, it just wasn't your time. But you never gave up. You never said never. You held on to that passion that whole time, and you know, made sure that everything else was right in your life, and you were set to be able to go back for that dream again. Now, I think it was like 93 or something is when you kind of hung up professional fishing for a little while.
No, it was 95 because it was the 94, 95 over the winter season of the invitationals where, you know, I kind of blew out because of that one tournament. I mean, I did well in the other 3, but that one with a 220th place finish was just, it ended it right there.
Yeah.
And, you know, growing up in the mid-Atlantic states, if people may remember, back in the late 80s and early 90s, there were a couple of classics here on the James River. The Bassmaster Classic was here.
Right.
And, you know, I went to the 1990 Bassmaster Classic, went to the Coliseum in Richmond and the big drive-through weigh-in. And I was, you know, I had just turned 20 and I was in it. And I watched Rick Clunn, who, strange enough, now I see him on the water, wave to him, you know, I'm competing against him. But so I watched him weigh in the last day, a bag like no one had ever seen in a summertime tournament at that time on the James River, and win. And I remember saying, I want to do that. And I'm not going to another weigh-in, Bassmaster Classic weigh-in, until I am there as a competitor. And it's been 30 years and I haven't been to one. So I've been to the shows for sponsor commitments. I've been to the classics, and it would have been hard this past year because John Cruz, very good friend of mine, travel partner, he was right there. And it would have been hard to stay away if he really was going to win. But I haven't been to a classic weigh-in. I kept that commitment now since 1990.
But that changes in 2021
It does.
because
this is where the hair starts to stand up on your arm.
exactly, I got chills now.
What 20 years later? How long has it been? 30 years. 30 years later, after a 16-year break, I believe, or whatever.
Yeah,
you were there, bro. You did it. You are on the big stage, right? I don't know the exact numbers because your season just dragged on this year because of all the COVID crap and everything. But what did you end up playing? You made the cut. You're in the Bassmaster Classic, right?
Yeah, I am. I made it, and you know, we kind of watched it unfold at Lake Fork because there was a camera boat on me because I was doing well. So there was a camera boat or a cameraman with me, and so we kind of watched it unfold. And I know the fish that put me in.
That is incredible.
And it was a tough fish to get in. It's on Bassmaster. It took me 2 or 3 minutes. It was all tangled up in the dock. It was a nightmare. I knew that was the fish sitting there tangled up in a brush pile and pilings, and I went in and got it. And you just, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And it was a great catch. I'm glad that the camera was there.
Right. I think you had that. It was on your Facebook page today, right? Didn't I see it? Yeah. So if you want to see that catch, it's probably worth looking at for sure.
Oh, yeah.
The life-changing fish catch. I mean,
and it was a 5-pounder. I mean, I watched him come up and eat the chatterbait, and then he got so wrapped around that I couldn't get him out. I had to go in. It was a long, drawn-out process, but I knew as he was tangled up in there, and I could see him, that fish right there will put me in the Classic.
That's incredible.
And I got him.
I didn't realize it was that close. It was down to a fish to get you in there. Wow.
Well, it wasn't that close, but I needed to keep performing in that tournament because there were about 10 or 15 guys that had a bona fide chance of making the Classic. The guys that were in the cut that could fall out, or the guys that were out of the cut that could get in.
Right.
And they were all performing well. So there was a lot of changing down in the bottom, and I managed to consistently keep doing well in that tournament. And so I managed to make it.
And that's on Fork where it's a catch photo release lake. You're not even allowed to put them there. So it was the way it was broadcast. Were you able to hear the other competitors, like where they're at when you're sitting on that bubble like that? Did you know who was coming or how close you were at? I mean,
no, not at all. But you know, I'm kind of a numbers guy and an analytical guy. So I looked beforehand at our tournament that we had there last year at a better time of year, and I thought I needed to be about 30th to 35th place in this tournament to make the Classic.
Yeah.
So I looked at where 30th to 35th was in that tournament last year, knocked a couple pounds off a day, and I had a number in my head that I needed to get to that would get me to that 35th place. And, you know, so I knew what I needed to get to, but we don't know how other people are doing.
Right.
And it could affect how we're fishing if we did, but we don't know. We don't know. That's not how the Bassmaster Elite Series works.
No. And I mean, half dozen one, 12, 6 the other. I don't know which one's honestly more stressful. I can see it both ways, but I'm going to kind of say not knowing, is a pretty scary thing. Not knowing if you're there until it's that time, that anticipation. You know, but at the same time, yeah, I guess if you know a guy's 1 pound away from knocking you out, that's pretty scary too.
That is. I don't know which would be more nerve wracking, but you know, I just focused on the number, and I knew I was trying to get to that number.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic story, though. You know, what you went through to almost be there, to hold on to that passion, but to put it aside, to sort your life out and do what was probably best. In that meantime, what happened? Did you have a family? Did you get married? Did you?
Yeah. I mean, you know,
more deciding to your decisions than just your dreams.
Well, you know, I kind of got sick of sleeping in my truck. I kind of got sick of, you know, staying on people's floors at tournaments, you know, which I did in my late teens and early 20s. So I really always wanted to have things a little easier financially. And it's hard to do in the bass fishing world. I've watched some people do it, friends of mine, Mark Daniels, Brandon Palaniuk. I mean, I competed against both of them in Federation National Championships, the final days. And those guys are just undeniable. Their talent is undeniable. So they went all in and they made it work because, again, their talent is just undeniable. Me, I've got some talent. I can cast. I can find some fish, but I wanted to have a backup plan if possible. And so that's why I went the route that I did. You know, I met my wife and we started a family, and my job has been going well now for 16 years at my law firm here in Richmond. And so it's just a different way to do it. You know, but it's a little unique, but everybody has to figure out their own way to do it.
That's right. Just like anybody else, we're all individuals, and we're all going to do what's best for us or should do best. But on that same note, you know, we got a lot of younger, inspiring anglers that watch our shows, that learn from you guys, that, you know, all that follow you as well or whatever. We got a young angler wanting to get to your level today. What would you recommend? What's their path? What steps should they be taking, and what should they be mindful of when they're trying to create a whole new career?
When I was coming up, there was no social media. When I was coming up, there were very few paying sponsors that you could get. Bass fishing was not as big as it is now as far as the money that's in it and the attention. So I think you have more avenues that you can use to become a successful personality in bass fishing. Right. But in order to become a successful bass fisherman or almost anything, you have got to spend time at it. In the bass fishing context, you have got to spend time on the water, period. Right. End of story. And, you know, you have to become competent with casting, with being able to find fish. And that takes time. And you can't just sit on one body of water. I see so many people, and there's so many people that I know from the Potomac, where I grew up, that they're very good on the Potomac or very good on the James River, but you have to be good at many different types of bodies of water. And that was an advantage to growing up in Virginia and fishing the Redman circuit, the VFL circuit. We have different types of water, and I think that's very important. The Chickahominy and James is different than the Potomac River as far as tidal rivers. Smith Mountain Lake is much different than Lake Gaston, is much different than Bugs Island. And you get a sampling of all the different kinds of fishing that's out there, almost short of smallmouth fishing up north and a couple other things. But you need to have a broad base of experience, and just being dominant. And I've heard some people say, hey, once you start winning tournaments, a lot of tournaments locally, then you start branching out. I don't know that that's the right way to do it. I know it was not the right way to do it for me. I needed to get that broad base of knowledge, and it takes a lot of time. I bet between the time I was 12 or 13 till the time I was in my mid-20s, I bet I spent 2,500 days on the water, something like that. A lot. You know, many of them were guide trips, but, you know, time on the water is very important. But you also, you know, the social media stuff can't be underestimated. There are plenty of people who can, you know, who are not the best fishermen that make a living in the fishing industry. They're not the best tournament fishermen. So it really depends. Do you want to be a hardcore tournament fisherman? Do you just want to be in the fishing industry because you love it and enjoy it? and make money other ways? Do you want to found a bait company like John Cruz did with Missile Baits? So everybody needs to figure out their own path. You can see what other people do and take something from everybody you meet that works for you, but you have to put something that is just your own spin on it.
Right.
So, hey, Mikey, what I wanted to do is everybody sees Zachary here, and Ed and Zachary are friends. I wanted Ed and Zachary to kind of talk about what he should do. He's 15 years old. He's a freshman in high school.
That's perfect.
What advice would Ed, as a successful business person, give to a young angler, be it Zachary, be it whoever that wants to pursue a career in the Bassmaster Elite Series?
That's right. And I think that's the best thing that we can do with these lives here, whatever. You answered a lot of people's questions, but there's a gentleman sitting right next to you, a young man right now, that is actually going to be trying to do this, that has that dream that you had, and there's no one better to be able to learn from than somebody that's been there, done that, learn the mistakes, and learn how to better those things. So I'm going to pull myself off the screen, and I'm going to let you two talk to it. So Zachary, you got questions for Ed over there? Go ahead, fire away, and we'll let you guys go back and forth, and hopefully everybody else can learn just from listening to you guys.
Okay. So one of my big questions is, if you were in my shoes, if you had all the opportunity in the world and your dream was to be a professional bass fisherman, how would you go about it?
Get a haircut.
The long hair would separate him out. So that would be something.
I have to intervene here. Zachary, the hair is awesome, bro. Don't listen to these guys. The hair is power. Okay, I'm back now.
But yeah, I mean, to start out early, I mean, I know that you fish a lot. I know you do real well. I know that you can catch them. So that's a basic. There are a million people that can catch them. So you need to make yourself marketable, and you need to get your education. You need to make sure you focus on that, because bass fishing is a tough world, and it is littered with people who have broken the bank, broken their marriages, broken businesses that they have, and you need to have something to fall back on. So you need to make sure you get the education. Nowadays, there's high school fishing, there's college fishing. People are getting scholarships for fishing to college. That always is going to be something. You're never going to go wrong getting education. Like I said, I quit college. There's a lot of people that never go back. I was fortunate enough to have my wife pushing me to go back, and I did that, and it worked out very well. But so you got to catch fish. You know that. You got to make yourself marketable. One thing that a lot of people do have, and that I kind of have, you need to have some source of income beyond fishing. Whether it be whatever kind of small business someone can start, a landscaping business, a pressure washing business, something easy that you can come and always be making money, or you can just go all in with the fishing and try to focus more on that, and maybe go along a social media route, because I know that there are people out there that do very well with social media, but that too, it's getting to be very crowded, I feel. So you need a hook or something to get people involved and interested in you. But so you got to keep fishing. You got to have a broad base of knowledge beyond your local waters, and that's costly to get and time consuming to get. Keep with your education. Try to have some kind of side business that you can continue to make money when you're not fishing. I got my captain's license when I was 21. That is a license there that you can have and guide with on tidal waters and other bodies of water. So that's something that's, once you get that, you have it and you can guide. That's a good way that I stayed on the water and got paid to do it. That's something that I would encourage anyone to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Honestly, I'm probably best known as Captain Mikey out there, but I got that license, my captain's license, to be able to guide. Here in Florida, you need to have that, and I think pretty much most of the states you do. If you want to legally guide people, you have to have
Correct.
a captain's license just for the responsibility of anything else. But there's a lot of things you can do with that captain's license aside from guiding. There's lots of careers in the marine industry that you can get just from that, but it's also a lot of responsibility. I think, Ed, you hit it right on the head, though. You got to be able to support yourself. Fishing is expensive. The industry is expensive. Getting to tournaments, until you're getting up to those levels where you got sponsorships helping you with those things, which is not easy to get, real true sponsorships like that, you got to be able to do more than just hopefully ask your father for a little bit of help out there, because God knows he's going to do his best to help you, but we can't all do that. You'd be surprised what some of these anglers, some of the top anglers in the world, have done for a living to be able to help support themselves. I know one who is actually a very highly rated angler that was actually a nanny. He babysat. He took care of children to be able to help support himself to get to fishing. So that's important. That's a very, very important point right there, for sure.
Ed, what do you think about fishing tournaments at a young age? Does that help or hurt?
I think it's good. I mean, I think that competition is good in anything. You know, you need to know, because fishing isn't a participation sport. You don't get an award for participating.
Yeah.
And so you need to know how you're stacking up against people. And I think that's very important in anything. A lot of people don't like that nowadays. But I think that you need to know how you are relative to people, because I remember, you know, and we've all seen people that decide to get into tournament fishing and they think they're going to do really well, and because they've been fishing a body of water forever and they're catching all these, you know, 3 and 4 pounders, and they're catching 15 pounds a day, which might be good on that body of water. Suddenly those fish end up weighing about 8 or 9 pounds when they get to the scales, because they've been overestimating. They don't really know. They only go out on good days. They don't fish with a lot of pressure on the water.
Right.
So I think it's important to fish in tournaments, you know,
Sure.
and get your teeth kicked in a little bit. It's going to happen.
Learn from your mistakes, learn from your losses. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The best way to learn is to make a mistake. Absolutely. But yeah, there's nothing. This sport can be incredibly humbling when you're at the tournament level. No doubt. But
Yes.
you know, we've talked about this several times, and you touched on it real well here, Ed, about the social media aspect that's out there today. And it is a great way. I'm one of those guys. You know, I fished tournaments when I was your age, Zachary, and I got to a level that, much like where I had to make a choice myself. Was I going to continue to go the tournament route and invest all that time and money, or was I just going to go a different direction altogether? I made this decision mostly for how my father told me to do it, which was, you know, it's not easy. How many professional fishermen are there in the world? And I said, you know, a couple hundred. Well, chances of me being one of those couple hundred one day, didn't matter how good I was not good in my father's eyes. So I went the other route, and I probably regret, but I stayed in the industry because of getting my captain's license, becoming a guide, and eventually through social media, I found a way back into the professional fishing world. So it's out there, but the information that you gather from social media and other people, you got to be mindful of where the information is coming from. The education that coming from guys like Ed. Now, like you said, you fish so many diverse bodies of water, and you're putting that knowledge to the test for $100,000 paychecks. Whereas somebody like myself, I may have some great information that I learned on my local legs that may not help you somewhere else, but it's good enough information to be entertaining and create content with. So take it for what it's worth a lot of time where the information is coming from out there, but don't let that discourage you from going for your dreams still. If you want to be in the fishing industry and you may not have the ability to work your way up to the professional level, there's plenty of ways to do it through social media. But even at your level, Ed, how important is social media today?
It's incredibly important to sponsors.
Right.
I am not the most prolific person on social media. I probably am a little behind the curve, but you know, it's incredibly important. Sponsors are extremely interested in that. And, you know, I have a marketing degree. That's what that's what I got my undergraduate degree in. And, you know, so I know a good bit about marketing, but social media is something that it's great. It reaches a lot of people. I don't know about how it translates to sales necessarily, but there are people out there who do know, and so it's a very, very important aspect to any sponsor now. It's almost the first question out of their mouth is, how many followers do you have?
That's
or
right.
Here, give me your various social media handles so that I can go check out everything.
That's
and so
right.
it's terribly important. And I don't know if the old adage that any press is good press really works, but there are some people that are really sideshows out there.
Yep.
And there are also people that are very serious. And you have to find, just like anything, you got to find your own way and make your own way, because you can't go out and just copy people. You have to find your own way.
That's right. It all boils down to exposure, no matter what. Exposure of yourself and exposure to your all important sponsors. How much you can get a product in front of a camera is an important thing, and that's a very important step, I believe, to any young aspiring anglers. This is the world today. This is part of this world, and it's a huge part of it. So make sure you are active. And hey, man, honestly, you younger kids, you're going to know way more about this than we do anyway. You grew up with this stuff. We have to teach ourselves and learn it. And we're going to make a lot of mistakes, but you guys live it, and it should be almost second nature to you. So social media is incredibly important. We got actually a pretty good question here. This is from Justice Mims. And he says, how do you enter your first tournament, and how do you determine club to join? What's a good club to join? That's a great question.
Do you want me to answer that, or do you
want? Okay. Well, I
would. Nowadays there are junior Bassmaster tournaments. There are high school Bassmaster tournaments. There are college. So, as a young person, I captained my son and my boss's son during a tournament. And I think there were some kids that were as young as maybe 9 or 10 years old. I don't know what the lower limit is. So there are options out there. As far as the high school tournaments, I think those still require a captain to be there. But you can start, as far as I know, entering BFLs and entering Bass affiliated clubs at 16. Back when I was getting in, it was a little looser. There may not have been the legal requirements. I think my mom signed something, and I was able to start fishing at 12 or 13. But now, you have a lot of different options. I mean, and Zachary can speak to it because he fishes some.
And touching back on the tournaments, I think since the second weekend in June, I fished a tournament every weekend since about 2 weeks ago. And I've had some tournaments where I've gotten my teeth kicked in, and my first high school tournament I ever fished in, I zeroed. And then the weekend after that, me and my dad won a tournament. And I think that just shows how humbling fishing can be, and how you just need to keep your head up and keep going, and not let your head get in, not let your I don't know what I'm trying to say.
You're frustrated.
Yeah. Not let your frustration get to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like Ed said, fish as much as you can. Enter as many tournaments as you can. Local level. And honestly, a lot of times, and that's the way I had to do it back in the day. And I'm sure, Ed, you had to do the same thing. You had to start with those local clubs.
Mm-hmm.
You had to qualify through them. You had to, you earn your own way to be able to get to the next level. Today, it's a lot easier, I think, with high schools. I didn't have high school teams. I think it's just a more guided path today. And I know a lot of guys that are pros now. They have sons that are starting to do this as well, just like you, Zachary. And those Toyotas are really great. The FLW Toyota, you can be a co-angler on one of those and be a co-angler behind a boater at a younger age, learning from them while you're competing at the same time. You can end up winning boats. There's all sorts of great things. But there's a lot more options than there ever were, I think, for sure, when you're trying to go that way. So I think, if the best advice we can give you, Justice, out there is enter them all. Enter them all. As long as you can get in them, enter them, and work your way from there. I definitely think that's a great way.
And I got one more question for Ed. For kids like me, in about 2 years or even next year, I'll be fishing my first Bassmaster Open. What's the best way to get mentally prepared for that?
Prepare to throw a Cinco. if you're in the back of a boat, are you going to be fishing as a co-angler?
We haven't
Maybe not.
decided yet.
Well, for that tournament, look, it's going to be a step up in level of competition. But if it's on maybe the James or something, you're going to have a leg up on a lot of people because darn well you can go out there and catch 10 or 11 pounds a day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be, just a matter of doing better than that, obviously, to really succeed in the tournament. But if it's on a body of water that you don't know, I'm sure you do this. You just do as much research as you can.
Mm-hmm.
You try to get down and pre-fish several days at least. I mean, because in the opens, there are people that get there a week or two in advance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is cutthroat and it is very intense. So do as much research as you possibly can about weights and patterns and what you can expect at the time of year you're going to the body of water. Look at Google Earth as much as you can to try to figure things out. I almost have the lake and areas of the lakes that I go to or rivers memorized in my head by the time that I go to a body of water. So you do that and make sure your equipment's straight. Just have what you think you're going to need, and be prepared to probably fish a difficult tournament, because I think the opens are probably they're probably harder than the elites, because in the elite series, we've got 80 some odd boats on the water for 2.5 or 3 days of practice. None of us are really stick and fish that much. We pretty much lay off the stuff. And so you don't have the same thing you have in opens, which is 200 plus boats on the water for a week, just crushing everything. And a lot of people will be putting fish in the boat in practice. I mean, a lot of fish. So you end up with a really beat up fishery, and you have to fish it a lot differently. I always look for sneaky little one fish spots, totally stayed away from community holes. Whereas on the Elite Series, I kind of messed up last year a little bit in some tournaments because I was still looking for those sneaky spots, which take quite a while to find. Whereas with only 80 boats on the water, you can go fish community holes and catch them.
Yeah.
So it's a different, you just have to adjust your expectations a little. And it's not easy. I mean, there are a lot of really good anglers. You can look at the open standings this year, and there are some incredible anglers that are not exactly in the top 10.
Yeah.
So it's tough. They're
So
tough.
Ed, one thing I wanted him to talk to you about is co-angling, fishing out of the back of the boat, even at the BFL level. Good idea, bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, I fished 1 year as a co-angler when I was 16 in BFLs and Redmans, and I drew some very good people. I learned a lot. I learned a lot out of the back of the boat. But I think at your level and what I know about you, I don't think that's going to probably be a tremendous help to you. I think you need to go out and find fish on your own and figure things out. There's so much information available online about all these bodies of water, videos, YouTube videos, old tournaments. You need to take that information, hit the water yourself, because it's hard to catch anybody else's fish. If people ever give you spots or waypoints, I mean, once in a blue moon, it'll work out. You got it. It's hard to catch other people's fish. So I would say if someone has a good amount of skill and they've been doing pretty well and everything's going pretty well and they're even in their teens, I don't see any problem going as a boater if you can do it. That's where you really learn, because you learn how to deal with everything other than just fishing, because you deal with mechanical issues, you deal with electronics issues, you deal with getting gas, you deal with getting oil, you deal with food, you deal with everything.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. I mean, it's time consuming.
I think so too. And if nothing else, it eliminates any more excuses. I mean, you don't have that excuse to say, "Wow, he cut me off. I had to fish from the back of the boat. He kept me tight to the bank." Whatever it is, it's all on you. The onus is on you, so it's all on you to learn and better yourself a little bit more. That's my take on it, any which way. But I am one of those guys that tends to fish from the back of the boat all the time, anyway. So
the only thing I have to say about that is, I think that you need to fish a year as a co-angler just so you understand what your co-angler is dealing with in the back of the boat. We had a little incident this year with the co-angler, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to get ready to kick Zachary out, but I have one more question for him. Head to head, you and Nicholas, who wins?
Nicholas, 100%.
Oh,
Well, I mean, that might be brutal.
I need to borrow the boat this weekend.
Oh, okay.
That's the only reason.
Chalk it up to maybe you might have a little more experience.
Love you, buddy.
Thanks, Zachary.
All right, Ed, thank you for that great information.
Trying to help.
We got all sorts of crazy questions, but anyway, I want to get Ed talking a little bit about some serious stuff now, which would be missile baits, the quiver,
Yeah,
and some other exciting stuff that we got coming soon.
Yeah. John at Missile Baits, I mean, Cruz has made some terrific baits over the years. Company's doing very well. I know he's having a banner year this year, and I feel lucky to have known him since he was just a little kid. He was Zachary's age when I met him. And, it's been nice to watch Missile Baits grow and be involved in it. And so this year he's coming out soon with what I think is pretty innovative. I mean, he comes up with some great ideas. He's going to actually have technique-specific packs that are going to be sold initially through Missile Baits. And so they're going to be dedicated towards, punching or whatever technique-specific things he comes up with. So he's going to provide a number of different baits as far as, different sizes of quivers or different colors of D-bombs. But he's also going to provide gamakatsu hooks with those that are appropriate for that bait and those techniques, as well as tungsten weights that will go with them, whether they be Nico weights or, punching weights, flipping weights, whatever it might be. So he's going to have basically a one-stop shop, great Christmas gift. And so those should be up on Missile Baits within the next several weeks, from what I'm told. So that's pretty cool. It's a good idea, I think, from John, and they're going to be a one-stop shop for a specific technique.
absolutely. I think that's fantastic. One of the things I like Missile Baits. I love their stuff. Here in Florida, like I was saying to you earlier, Ed, that D-bomb is the bomb. It is the bait. Everybody's throwing it, and I think it not only is it just a really good bait, he's done a great job at Missile Baits making it available to people. You can get most of the Missile Baits at Walmart, which everybody can get to a Walmart and whatnot, but he's done a good job marketing it, and maybe that's with your help there with you along that.
Not so much.
Push it out to a lot of the tackle shops and doing the social media things that he does, make a good product, but also get it out there. So it's become very popular and it's easy to get a hold of, but they work. They really, really work. Some great stuff. I think those kits are awesome. I'd love to get a couple of them myself. I'm sure I'm going to have to.
Well, and interestingly, it's funny you say something about availability, because he worked extremely hard this year because of COVID and everything that went on. There have been a lot more people fishing. So a lot of people in the fishing industry, a lot of businesses have done very well, but a lot of them have had supply issues depending on where their lures come from. But John's stuff is made here in the USA, and he has worked very closely with his manufacturers that manufacture some of his baits to keep those supply chains open, and he has made it work when I know some other companies haven't. But that really speaks to his diligence and foresight when it comes to business.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, he's a wealth of knowledge. He's been fishing at that level for a long time. I forget 11 Bassmasters, I think, classics.
A lot.
I'm not even positive out there and stuff. But one thing I do know of you, Ed, is you have a very strong reputation throughout the industry as a tinkerer. You're one of those guys that can really customize your own baits. How much of that have you done? Have you actually inspired John in a lot of these baits with your own tinkering?
No, I don't think I probably have with much of the plastics. Much of what I've done, I mean, I had back a long time ago, I had a little lure company, and I would make all the lures, and I would go around, and as I traveled to tournaments, I would set up accounts at various tackle stores around the country. And so, I've always tinkered with baits. They were, a mold that I had made for a spinnerbait. And I also have swim jigs that, I catch fish on them to this day, and they just, I make them the way I want. I want a certain stiffness weed guard, and so I make it. Or I have a certain hook I want to use, so I make it, because back in the day, there were not all of the baits available that there are today. So necessity really was the mother of invention. You had to go and figure out how to make a very narrow bait that would go through grass easily, because there just weren't any out there.
Right.
So I tinker with baits, I tinker with hooks, I modify a lot of stuff that fits what I want it to do.
That's right. You make it work, but more importantly, you make it work for you and your style and how you fish with it. I read a couple articles. Bassmaster had some great articles on this topic that you had told and talked about and stuff. I know, like the spinner baits that you've done, you basically design your own head on that, and it tends to roll a little bit more than other spinner baits. So you counteract that with the hook placement and how far out a hook's at, or how long or short your hook was, basically, and things like that. And you did that same thing with your swim jigs as well. The things that maybe people don't know, but you learn from experience. You learned what didn't work and what works, and how to do it and adjust it yourself. So it's no different than your fishing, I don't think, really. You fish to your strengths, and so you were tinkering your baits to your strengths out there. If I got some of your baits, am I going to do better with your baits than I will with a store-bought one?
Some of them I think you would. My spinnerbait, for instance, is just an easy example. That bait, it's a very narrow head, and it's really designed for grass. You don't want to throw it around wood that much. But it has, I put a light wire on it. Back in the day, 30 gauge wire was unheard of. Right. But that vibrates a lot more. And more importantly, when you're reeling it through grass, like I had on the Potomac growing up, grass would get stuck on the swivel or the second blade. And with normal, very stiff 35 or 40 gauge wire, if you try to pop it, it doesn't move. But that lesser gauge wire, the 30 gauge wire, will actually compact and allow that grass to slide off. And so what that does is it makes it more efficient. And that has got to be, in business, in fishing, in anything, you have got to be as efficient as possible with your movements, with your baits. And that's why a lot of guys on the Elite Series, they're unbelievably efficient. And so little things like that with the bait make it more efficient. Or throwing a particular crankbait that doesn't get snagged much. If you only get snagged 5 times a day versus someone who gets snagged 15 times a day, whether it be because of the way it runs or the way you cast, that's going to make you more efficient. And so you have to do all of those things, and customizing that spinnerbait and making it the way I wanted it helped.
I think it looks like Ricky about had said something to say there, but I think it's much like to me, it's like your rods. You have a multitude of different rods to do different techniques and different styles that work better here than they work there. Whereas, you probably could have one rod and pretty much get it done, but it's going to be better if you customize it a little bit towards each technique. I know you said something about your swim jigs, and I remember reading this, the weed guard on your swim jigs. Mm-hmm. Depending on where you wanted to throw it, you had a different swim jig with a different weed guard for grass, as well as you have one for a different one with a different weed guard for logs. Even though they look the same, you have different ones tied on for different situations and customized for different situations.
Well, they actually look similar, and there's a reason for that. They both have generally a bullet head, but the one for grass has no eyes on it. It's just a bullet head. And I know that I put a very limber weed guard in it.
Right.
Because with grass, who cares? But then with the ones that I use around wood, it's actually a slightly fatter bullet head, and it has a little eye socket on it, so I can easily identify them in my tackle box. Right. And in that, I put the stiffest weed guard I can get, and that's so that when they roll, which they inevitably do, it has a less chance of getting snagged on a log. So I have those, but I have them, they're slightly different, and I can tell the difference instantly by looking at them. But those little things just help me out.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense.
So, I talked to somebody today, and I'm not going to disclose who the person was, but they said that Ed is probably one of the most intelligent fishermen he's ever met. And just from our conversation tonight, I kind of get that easily. But they said the thing with Ed, the first year on the Elite Series, he tried to fish other people's ways. The biggest thing this year was Ed fished his strength and the way that he liked to fish, and he had a great year and made the Bassmaster Classic. So I guess what I'm taking from this is you got to work hard. You got to, have your plate set before you go out there. There have been a lot of guys that have been very talented fishermen that have tried to make it but didn't have their ducks in a row per se before they went out and failed. And don't try to fish like Kevin Van Dam or Skeet Reese or Mike Iaconelli. Go fish like Mikey or Ricky or whoever, and you will be successful. I do think you can't go out and be worried about a lot of things at home. You need to make sure that's straight. You don't need to worry about if your mortgage is paid next week and you got 2 opens coming up. So we've got a lot of great information. I do want to have Ed talk about the quiver, the newest bait from Missile.
Yeah,
and maybe some ways to fish it, and some techniques he uses, and then we'll wrap this up. We're gonna go long tonight, but this is an excellent show.
This is a great show. I'm loving this. But do you have one of these the new baits with you?
Yeah, I mean it came out earlier.
Put you on big screen then.
Yeah, I don't know where to hold it.
Put them on right up there. Yep, that's good. Put them on big screen.
But it's a quiver. There are several different versions of it. This is a 6.5-inch quiver, and I actually used it some at Lake Fork, but John actually cruised it extremely well with it earlier this year, and it's a very versatile bait. We have a 4.5 and a 6.5-inch version, and it's a great Nico bait. But as it's turned out, it's a very good drop shot bait as well, and you can even use it flipping like any kind of straight worm. That really has been probably one of the better product releases over the past couple of years, and it really has added some fish to my live well. I caught some fish on it at Eufaula that helped me out quite a bit. It's great, like I said, for Nico rigging. You put it on a weedless Gamakatsu G finesse hook, and it'll go through just about anything on a light Nico rig. So that's one bait that really has been a good addition this year. One other thing is the bomb shot. Not a tremendous number of people use this bomb shot. It looks similar to a quiver, but it's much smaller. Generally a finesse smallmouth bait. This one I caught a good number of smallmouth on, and again, this is one of the other things that I customized. Gamakatsu makes some incredible hooks, and they came out with a G finesse stinger hook, and most people have been using it as a Nico hook. So I'm going to put it up here, and I don't know. Yeah, it's probably not going to be able to be seen.
Yeah, you can see it.
But they use it as a Nico hook. I have actually tied on a little tiny keeper on there, and I used it as a drop shot hook this entire year. And it takes about 1 or 2 fingers to count how many fish I lost. It was barely any. And that little keeper that I put on allows me to fish the drop shot the way that I like it, which I actually like not to nose hook it, but I like to string it on and actually have it sit out flat. So I just kind of string it on the hook, and that keeper keeps the bait on there, and it'll help you with any bait. You can use little swim baits on it or any soft baits, but that little keeper has really helped. That's another customization that I do. The Gamakatsu hook is great, but it doesn't take super glue that well because of the nano coating on it.
Right.
But so I put that keeper on, and little things like that help me. It keeps the bait on. You don't go through as many baits, and it's just a more efficient way to fish. But those have been 2 baits that really helped me this year.
And Ed's signature technique is a power drop shot. We need to have him on for that rod reel setup at some point, because it's not quite the same deal as your normal spinning rod setup.
No, and I think that's actually, I would love to film that and see and be around that, because that's a highly overlooked technique that most people don't even think about doing.
I can't believe I brought
Here
it up.
it's extremely effective.
We're good.
The quiver looks amazing. I'm really excited about that. We do a lot of speed worm fishing, and I think that would work really well as a speed worm as well. I can see it on a shaky head. I can see it, like you said, the Nico rig for sure. I can see a whole bunch of ways to fish that one. The smaller version, the
bomb shot.
Bomb shot, that's right. Yeah. I've done really, really, really well on that on ultra clear rivers. We actually have a guy that's been Jake Dunn. I think I met him down on the Rainbow River down here in Florida, which is ultra crystal clear river, super clear. So the fish are extremely finessey. They're shy. They can see you coming long before you can. That bait, the bomb shot on a small finesse swing head jig is just dynamite for me. You flip it up in there, and that the action that bait had was able to swing like that is just incredible. Got me more fish than I ever had not using it by trying my typical methods. That's a great little bait.
Yeah, they're versatile.
The quiver's going to be a really good one. I'm really excited. Is that available now?
Yeah, it is. It's been available this year, and he's coming out with new colors all the time. So everything from what you would expect, green pumpkin, all the way down to some more unusual colors. This one, it looks pretty strange, but it's a orange green pumpkin core, and the light doesn't really do it justice. But it's really kind of an orange worm, and it's unusual, but it works. And, he has all the typical black and blues out there and everything you might need. But it's a very good, versatile bait. And the 4.5-inch size is a great pond bait. It's, a little bit smaller, but it works really well on a Nico rig. It's been a tremendous bait this year for us.
And the quiver you can fish about anyway. I mean, you can wacky rig it, you can Texas rig it, you can Carolina rig it. It's a versatile bait from what experience I've had with it, and it just looks cool. Hey, Mikey, we're running close on time. Do you have anything else for Ed tonight?
I mean, you shared so much with us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't live far from him, so we can do this as much as you want.
I think this is great, and I actually really like it. I'm sure people will let us know the same or whatever, having you guys together like that rather than three of us in a screen separated or whatnot. That's the whole beauty of these lives, honestly, is it's just us talking. It's just us talking and learning from each other and sharing some stories. And I know, Ed, you've got a million stories. I'm sure you got some great stories, and some you probably don't want to share with us.
Are we closing this thing down yet? Because I am so excited to tell my story.
I've been dragging this down. So I don't know. Ricky's got a story that somehow involves me.
Everybody.
And I don't even know. I don't know anything about it, so I've been dragging this, trying to avoid it. But go ahead, get it done.
Mikey is a captain. Ed is a captain. I know you had an incident with a boat where you captained it around to the other side of the country or something and stayed there for a while, didn't you, Mikey?
Yeah.
Maybe just touch on that briefly. Where you?
Well, I've had a couple of them, but my grandfather was a captain. I'm actually a third generation captain. It was always a dream of mine to be a captain, but my grandfather, he got diagnosed with cancer. We knew it was terminal. He hadn't had much time, but the boat that he was captaining down in South Florida, down in Fort Lauderdale, the company that owned it said this: we don't want to hire another captain, so we're just going to sell the boat. So a gentleman from Madison, Wisconsin came down, bought the boat, and he said, listen, I built a house in Costa Rica on the Pacific side. I'll give you whatever you want for the boat, but you got to take it down there. And so we did. My grandfather and I, it took us several months, but we drove her from Fort Lauderdale all the way down through Central America, through the Panama Canal, up to this gentleman's house, and left the boat on a mooring. And I ended up living on the boat for about a year to help him out because, God, who knows? It was in the middle of nowhere, Costa Rica.
All right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Ed's story. We've got the conservative Ed that's a lawyer, that's a great bass fisherman. Well, the story I heard when he was in his 20s, he was on a boat with somebody somewhere in the Caribbean or somewhere, and the captain went AWOL and didn't show up.
Yeah.
So then Ed at 20 years old becomes the captain, and that's really 23. Yeah.
I just had to take the boat back because the captain went missing, and so I took the boat back to Miami.
So that's a responsible person right there. 23-year-old taking a boat. The captain goes, "Did you ever find a captain?"
No, I didn't have a choice though. What are we going to do? You know.
Well, that was pretty. I mean, that's very similar.
Drive the boat.
I was about the same. I think I was like 23 years old, somewhere in that range when this happened to me too.
Wow.
I was a car salesman at the time. My grandfather called me up back in Canada. My grandfather called me and said, "Listen, we got one last trip. It's going to take us 2 months, whatever it is." I said, "I don't care. I'm done. Let's go."
Wow,
so I got on it. But I literally, when we got the boat to this gentleman's, he built this gorgeous mansion in the middle of the rainforest in Costa Rica. There was a tiny little village there. And there's no marina, there's no docks or anything like that. So he had a mooring installed. He was going to leave this $1.5 million sport fisherman sitting on a mooring in the middle of flipping nowhere. He's like, "I'll get a local captain to watch it for me." That's not happening. So that is literally why I became a captain. I stayed on his boat for a year. I studied. I already put my hours in that I needed to get it or whatever. But I ended up getting my captain's license so I can take care of this gentleman's boat, because honestly, I love that boat so much. I didn't want to leave it. And who would say? Right? I had nothing better to do at that time.
So you drove through the Panama Canal. Wow.
I did. Yeah, that was incredible.
That's incredible. So cool. But did you have a 6-pack or a master's license?
I have 100 gross ton now.
Nice. There you go.
At that time, I had just gotten the 6-pack. That was the easiest one to make sure I had something.
Yeah.
We weren't doing anything commercial or anything anyway. So it was just literally once every 3 months, the owner would come down and I'd take him down to the Galapagos Islands or wherever we wanted to go, let him fish for a while. And the rest of the time I sat on that boat and cleaned it every day.
Oh, yeah. It's a time-consuming job. That's so cool. That's great.
So I just figured, we always have a story with everybody. And I found out about this one tonight. And to me, it was just ironic the similarity in y'all's stories, and I never knew that you were holding down on me. I thought I knew it all, but no.
There's even more.
I'm glad it was just that story.
There'll be another one. There'll be another one.
Learning more about you, there's a lot more similarities beyond just that or whatever. I also aspired to be in the pros. I started tournament fishing when I was probably like 13 years old, somewhere in that range. Back in Canada, I got to about 17 years old, and I was winning all the local tournaments. Yeah. And like I said, I had make that choice. It wasn't so much for me because I was still a minor, so it was really on my father's shoulders to help me out and get me to these tournaments, to help me pay, to move to that next level. And he kind of talked me out of it, but that's eventually why I went and led a different life altogether. But I am in my early 40s now. So you're telling me through your story, you've inspired me. I've always wanted to be a pro, so maybe I can still do it. Okay. And at 49, I might still be able to be a rookie on the elite tour. So guys,
it's possible.
There's still hope. There's still hope.
It's possible.
So I tease my boys all the time about I've still got 4 years college eligibility. I might come back. I might freaking come back. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
absolutely.
Mike, shut us down. Ed, it's been a pleasure. We'll do it every week if you want to. I don't care. I mean,
as often as I can.
Ed, thank you so much for this. We learned a ton, and I know people out there appreciate it. All the knowledge you have, and we're definitely going to have to do this again. If nothing else, just swap some more stories, because I know you got a lot more of them back there.
We'll get him. It'll be easy to get him live on the water too. We just got to pick a date that works for us. So we'll go live from Chickahominy. And
definitely, that would be really cool, because I mean, you got some incredible knowledge on why you customize baits and everything. But I know you are a very diverse fisherman. You're in love with smallmouth and the northern stuff. So that's something that a lot of us can learn out there. So I think getting you on the water would be a fantastic day out there, and I'm sure everybody else would like that. Yeah. Well, Ed, we appreciate it so very much. I'm going to close this thing out here. We got a couple comments. Lucas, we'll talk about him in a little bit or whatever, but I'm going to let Ricky come back on here. I think we're good, actually. Right?
Actually, Mikey, I'm gonna walk Ed out. Just go ahead and shut it down, and I'll talk to you later.
That sounds good. Ed, thank you very much. Ricky, always a pleasure for sure. And we will talk to you guys later.
Good deal.
Well, there we go, guys. That was fantastic. Just a great time talking with Ed. The guy is just a wealth of knowledge, experience, of course, too. And as we said, they call him the barrister because he is an actual lawyer out there. So probably the most educated angler on in professional fishing. Fantastic. But I hope that helped you guys out. I hope you learned a little bit out there. Maybe if you're aspiring to become a pro yourself or work your way up into the industry any which way, hopefully we answered a bunch of questions for you, as well as learning how to customize your baits and make it work for you. That's probably the most important thing. Guys, we appreciate it very much that you stopped by. We hope to see you again next Thursday. We're going to have another show. We're not exactly positive who's going to be here, but make sure you leave the comment in the comments somewhere who you want to see on the next show or on a future live cast. And of course, make sure you're following us on Bass365, Bass365 on Instagram, Bass365.com on Facebook, the web, Bass365.com, and of course, our app is ready to go. We have a mobile app out there. If you're tired of the rest of the world, social media, and having to listen to everything else, you just want fishing, join our mobile app. Make sure you get the app. We got it for iPhones and Androids out there, and we have ways on that app that you can put your own content, social pages, sell your boat, sell your gear, or just shop around for a bunch. But mostly everything in there is going to be fishing. That's for sure. So make sure you check it out. And of course, if you want to get some pretty cool gear, everything these pros got on their boats, as their attire and their fishing gear, is available at our store, Bass365 Stores. That's 365stores.com. So check it out today. Other than that, guys, we really appreciate you being here, and we will see you again on Thursday. Until then, have fun, tight lines, and we'll see you on the water.